Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle, the first of 2023. Still top of the league, thankfully, and will still be top on Saturday, whatever happens, thanks to Wrexham and Chesterfield's involvement in the FA Cup. But we did drop a couple of points at Oldham. Here to dissect that, both of my pundits and guests tonight were at, I don't know if it's called Boundary Park or a new stadium naming rights these days. But good evening, Mark Stallard.
Evening and Happy New Year, everyone.
And evening to Chloe. The team you work for are top, aren't they, Burnley? And the team you support are top. So it's not too bad, is it?
No, it's all going well so far, and hopefully it'll be the same at the end of the season.
Yes, we certainly hope so. Although no panic buttons being pressed, but I know one or two people are a bit concerned that we dropped 2 points. The goalkeeper debate, which always seems to rear its ugly at various points, we'll be chatting about that later in the programme tonight. As it's the first show of 2023, very happy and prosperous New Year to all. Evening all, says Paul Huskerson, Derek Gill. Happy New Year from Malcolm Shearston, Chris Gosling, Duncan Comrie, Stephen Newton. Evening all, just drained my get-in mug, all ready for a great show. Shane Walker and Karen Knight. Welcome to you all. Okay, well, we'll be chatting tonight. Has your view on the destiny of the title changed at all? The bookies have changed. It doesn't take much to change it. Wrexham are now the odds-on favourites, not us anymore, as a result of Wrexham winning and us drawing. The great goalkeeping debate. Sam Slocum getting a bit more flack, not unsurprisingly. Some believe we need a younger, more football-orientated goalkeeper. We had one of them last season. Yaros came from Liverpool, and Sam saw him off. We'll get Stell's thoughts on Chloe from Chloe. My two penneth, because I'm sure we will dissect this many times over. For the goal with the, if you like, misunderstanding between Sam and Kyle, it reminded me a little bit of the season we dropped out of the Football League, where it was kind of very dangerous for us whenever we had a corner, because we'd put the ball in, it'd be cleared, and the opposition would run down the other end of the pitch and score a goal. And it probably took us about a year to get over that malaise. That was kind of my takeaway from that goal. But still, you were in the commentary box. Me and Chloe were in the away end. What's your take on all of this? We inevitably get carried away. I read somewhere, and this sums it up. The newspapers are discussing, has Erling Haaland been found out? Premier League defenders know how to cope with him. 3 weeks ago, he was the successor to Mbappe, Messi, and everything else, and now he's been found out. What's your takeaway from Oldham?
Yeah. Well, the one thing we all know about football is that it's not short of overreaction, is it? In any walk, in any sphere you talk about, whatever level you're talking about, if there's going to be an opinion, there's going to be an overreaction to any opinion and anything they see. If we're talking specifically, not Erling Haaland, but Sam Slocum and the goal, the first equaliser on Sunday. I nearly said Saturday, then it was Sunday, wasn't it? It was, for me, Charlie on commentary sort of said immediately, Sam Slocum error. And yes, it was a slight error, heavy touch, but it was compounded with Kyle Cameron trying to then play a ball round a corner and you had a second bite at the cherry to clear it. So it was two errors really that compounded themselves to give away the goal, the soft goal. It could easily been prevented. Yet if Sam Slocum, his starting position's fine, absolutely right, gets to the ball to prevent that counter attack, he just has a heavy touch. And in hindsight, you go, well, just boot it into row Z. There's no problem. But he has a heavy touch, sort of then tries to chase after it, knows he's not going to get there, but the ball goes to the skipper, Kyle Cameron. And then you want to go, the skipper go, okay, my keeper's out of position, he's out of goal, but I've got the ball, I'll put it into row Z, and we'll all get back in position and sort out that, sort your touch out and what have you. He doesn't, tries to play a little ball around the corner, gets intercepted, and the lad's got a near enough open goal. So it's like a lot in football. It's not one calamitous mistake, but it's a combination of sort of almost, one heavy touch from a goalkeeper, that can happen. One poor decision from Carl Cameron, that can happen. It's just we got punished for it. And generally, if we'd have won the game 3 or 4, and that had been the goal we'd have conceded, it wouldn't have got too much airtime. But because we dropped 2 points, there's the overreactions to how calamitous it was. And I know people will say, well, it's not the first error that Sam Slocum's made, and then they're right, it's not. But I just think the way that Notts are set up to play, the way that they're not about booming the ball into Rosette. And sometimes, thankfully not too often this season, but sometimes we'll get punished for it. Sunday being a case in point. But again, it's not just one error. And I know, it's probably easier for people to come down and hammer Sam Slocum than Carl Cameron. But in that instance, if you take it in singularity, that's what it was. The goal came from a heavy touch from the goalkeeper and probably a slightly poor decision from the skipper. Like I say, not calamitous errors, but the sort of errors you get sometimes at National League level. And frustrating as it is when we're top of the table, but thankfully there've not been too many errors. So, it's a couple of errors. They'll learn from it, and we go on.
Chloe, you had a long old day, didn't you? Didn't you come up from Hertfordshire to the game?
Yeah.
Grandad picked you up at the station or something, yeah?
Yeah, so Hertfordshire, drove to Luton Airport Parkway, there to Kettering, change at Kettering to Nottingham. Then my granddad drove up to Oldham, and then back to Buckshire after that. So it was quite a long day.
Was it worth the trip?
Well, look, the biggest positive I actually took away from the game was the atmosphere. A lot of people have been hounding in on the atmosphere, specifically at away games this season, with how well we travel with in terms of numbers. And that felt special on New Year's Day. Obviously, the result kind of didn't follow, but we were kind of right in the mix of it near the back of the stand. And it always helps when you've got a low roof like we did. But it was incredible. And honestly, it felt more of a EFL game than it did a National League game. So it was a great feeling to have, like you say, that many people there and just getting behind the lads. And hopefully we can bring that on through the rest of the season because we're going to need it.
Where are you with the goalkeeping debate, Chloe? Because I think this is a part generational thing. As the granddad of the three of us, before the age of 20, I don't think I ever saw a goalkeeper go out the 18-yard box. Stell would be in an era where goalkeepers were perhaps encouraged just a little bit to kick the ball and do a bit more. You would be an era where goalkeepers, arguably now, are judged as much by their ability with their feet and distribution as they are using these. I mean, what's your take on Sam versus the younger, more identikit keeper that would be more in sync with the total football approach, possession-based approach that we play?
I mean, it's a difficult one because I've said all season that the difference between us going up or not isn't going to be Sam Slocum. Everybody in the team is going to make mistakes. Obviously, he's going to have a big impact in that when he's the goalkeeper. And yes, he has made a couple of mistakes this season. Obviously, the one on New Year's Day. But like we say, that was a couple of people. I personally think it started from the corner. We played such a high line, but every single man was in their half. You've got to leave somebody back for cases like that. The ball was then lost. I think it might have been Austin on the edge of their box. And then it's kind of ball straight through. And then obviously mix up between Sam and Kyle. But you got to get that from all players. That goal wasn't just because of Sam Slocum. I think there might have been one at Dorking as well. But yeah, he's made a couple of mistakes, but he's not the difference. He's not that bad to say he's going to be the difference between us going up or not. I think he's grown up in the era that he's not really been asked to play out with the ball at his feet, or this has been a new thing for him as well, especially since Williams has come. I know Birchnell kind of played a similar way, but it's like this season he's really been asked to be able to do that. So it's a learning curve for him as well. And as well, he's getting older. He knows that. He's not shied away from that in interviews and how he gets through training and everything. But I think the problem is at the minute, obviously the Leicester keeper's out, but he's very young as well, as Tiernan Brooks, who we've got. So it's like there's no in between for us at the moment. So as much as I like Brooks, I've only seen him a couple of times. Can I really say that for the rest of the season, or to start playing him now, that I would take the risk when it's going to be a dogfight to win the league? Is it fair to put a, I don't know, 18, 19, 20-year-old in goal, or do you start him in a cup? It's a difficult one for me. I think I'd go with experience with Sam. But again, nobody's really pushing him, in my opinion, and maybe hasn't done since Patterson was here. So I think that's something else as well. But I personally wouldn't be changing him at this point in the season with what we've already got. But yeah, again, just on the mistakes, look, they happen. And I actually saw a tweet, I think it was yesterday, from one of the Notts fans that I really agree with, that with how Notts and Wrexham are playing this season, the way they drop points isn't by somebody being better than them. It's them making mistakes. And that's kind of how we've seen ourselves concede goals. It's just been by mistake. So if you eradicate that as much as you possibly can, you're never going to not make a mistake in a game. That's how you're going to win the league, by making less mistakes than what Wrexham do, essentially, because they're both playing that well. But look, there's a long way to go. There's also, that's like we say, that's not the only reason we didn't get 3 points on Sunday. It's also we didn't take chances. So it's a difficult one. But for me, look, I like them when they're able to play with the ball at the feet, but that's an added bonus. If they can kind of save some shots, that's what they're there for, in my opinion. And right now, would I be changing Sam Slocum for something that we've already got? No.
Chris Gosling enters the debate. Before we hang Slocum out to dry, the whole passage of play preceding it is where it went wrong. James Shipley adds, Sam has been very assured this season. The curse of being a goalkeeper is that there is always a critical mistake on the horizon. I rate him for this level of football. Happy to stick with him. I agree with Chris G, says Chris B. My criticism of Slocum is his awful record at penalties. Has he ever saved one? Brackets, I'm a Sam supporter. Hey, where's Emi Martinez when you need him? Chris says, I can't remember him saving one. Chris B adds, also thought the fans gave the players a good reception after the game, even with the disappointment of the result performance. Craig Simmons, more concerned by the overall defensive frailties than anything Sam has done. Northants Pie, one mistake in how many games? The reason players are in the National League is because they'll make mistakes. Happy New Year from A.D. Clark. Any New Year's resolutions? We'll get on to those in a moment. Derek Flowers, a bit of an update. Just to let people know, I was discharged from hospital New Year's Day after having pneumonia and a virus. Thank you all for the messages of support on social media, and a continued rehab for you, Derek. It's interesting what Chloe has to say about goalkeepers there, Stel. You know, if we forget, you know, going into the promotion run in last season, you know, there was the ins and outs with Patterson, but loan players you're never actually in control of, fundamentally. The parent club is. And we brought Yaroslav in, didn't we, from Liverpool, and he started. And while his distribution might have been better, there were one or two errors. And ultimately, Sam ended up starting choice keeper. So we kind of repelled that raid. I mean, look, my 2 penneth is that he is as good as, you know, he's in your top 5-10% of keepers in this division. A lot of the stuff he does, you don't necessarily see in terms of organisation. I mean, you would not be advocating any switching goalkeeper style, presumably, because I know you're a big advocate of his.
Yeah, no change whatsoever. I mean, if you could go and get a goalkeeper that's better, absolutely. I you know, there's not one player that wouldn't get changed if you could come in with something better. And again, I try to go away from the, say, lazy criticism, if you like. Oh, I've made a mistake, get rid. He shouldn't be playing. Somebody else should be playing. Well, who? And can we afford that? Who? You know, is it feasible? For me, he's, like I say, he's had a heavy touch as a goalkeeper. It happens. We've got punished for it. And and quite right, was it Chris who said about, it was the whole build-up before it, Chloe said about it, it came from our corner.
Corner,
The
exactly.
whole goal came from our corner where Sam Austin just gets smothered on the edge of the box, just maybe didn't make his mind up, got closed down, and then they're on the counter-attack. And goals are always combinations of errors. Any coach will tell you that you can analyse any goal, go back as far, and it's usually more than just one error. So I say that this part Sam Slocum played was a heavy touch. His starting position was correct. He was able to get onto the through ball. He had a heavy touch. Does that warrant him now being out the team after everything that's gone before it? No, not for me.
Northant Spy says, Paul, talking about lone keepers, the best keeper I've seen at Notts since Darren Ward was Patterson. I think Casper might have something to say about that, Northant Spy. Maybe you forgot him.
Maybe you didn't see him.
Crispy, Patterson was a step above. We aren't going to get another one of those. I think that, I think Patterson was a good keeper. And will go on to be a very good keeper. But the difficulty you have with lone keepers is they get called back at the behest, particularly goalkeepers. I think it's always you have like kind of a 24-hour recall on a goalkeeper. So no matter how much you think you might be having him for 6 months, 9 months, or whatever, goalkeepers you don't, and the parent club can recall them. If memory serves, that's what happened, wasn't it, last time? So.
One thing, Paul, just to go on from that as well. I agree with people. Anthony Patterson was fantastic with his feet, a good goalkeeper, and he's playing at a much higher level now. At Sunderland, he's got recalled, as you say. So they then went and got Vítězslav Jaros from Liverpool, caught him on a loan. He started playing, but then Sam got his place back in the team under Ian Birchnell. He judged him to be the better keeper for the team. Luke Williams comes in, and Sam Slocum hasn't been out the team other than for the cup games, and they've got another Premier League keeper in on loan in Brad Young. And if he was better than Sam, in Luke Williams' opinion, then he would be playing in the league games, but he isn't. Now, I've only seen him the one FA Trophy game because I didn't do the Colville game, and he looked a little bit edgy, as he would do because he's not played much game time, but. They've brought these keepers in. They've looked for other options, and Sam Slocum is obviously performing in training and in games at the highest level that Luke Williams goes, do you know what? I'm happy with him. He's my goalkeeper. And like I say, Luke Williams hasn't done anything wrong pretty much since he's come in. So if he backs him, I'm happy to back him.
We mentioned corners, and I know this has been circulating around on all the social media channels and everything. And look, it doesn't massively concern me, but we'll all be football manager for a minute because we all think we know best. And one of the things that has been noted is the number. We seem to have been playing a lot more short corners with relatively limited success. Chloe, is that something we've not mentioned it when we spoke, but is that something you've picked up on? Because I know a lot of fans have been mentioning it.
Yeah, especially against Oldham. Every single corner, it felt like, was the same. And it was just so frustrating because, look, we were playing good possession-based football, but maybe a lack of chances, especially first half. And it was just like, this is the opportunity to then do something different. Put the ball in the box. We've got a lot of tall players on the pitch. We brought in Bostock. We've obviously got Cameron, who is out like left wing back. You've also got Bajrami, you've also got Baldwin, which we're not a particularly big side, but there's quite a lot of players there that are 6 foot and over. And it was just kind of like we took then the short corner and went straight back to what we were doing before. So yeah, I don't mind a short corner when it's maybe 1 in 5, but whipping the balls in hasn't worked. I don't mind changing it up, but I would never personally choose to play a short corner unless, like you say, all you've done all game is whip them balls in and nothing's happened. Change it up. But it frustrates me. It does, especially when we've got quite a few players over 6 foot on the pitch. Anything can happen from a corner. But short corners can work when you've it's something off the training ground, something a little bit different. But it just seems every single one was coming back to the halfway line. We'll then have another 10 minutes of possession, and then we might play a pass into the box. And it just slowed the game down for me. I'd have liked to have just seen the ball whipped in and see what happens.
Still, strikers union and all that. Short corners, is that a waste of putting a free kick into the danger zone or not?
Well, yeah, get me my ex-player's head from 20 years ago. Yeah, absolutely. If the ball didn't come into the penalty area, I'd be absolutely fuming. But the game has changed. We've seen it at all levels of the game. They're loath now to toss balls in that are not even 50-50 balls, or statistically defensive teams have the advantage if you just put a ball into the box. I'm not saying this is right. And now this is something maybe for the Notts County stats guys who will have this. I will say I think Notts should be more dangerous. The amount of corners they have, I don't know. I don't have the stats about how many goals we've scored from set pieces, whether taken short or put in the box. I don't know what they are, but I think we should potentially score more goals for the amount of corners that we have. The only thing I can say is to try and offer up, and I think I tried to explain a little bit on commentary the other day, is why they do take them short, or why they take a lot of them short, is because they want to dominate possession, but also a lot of the short corners, you'll find them working the way. So if it's a corner on the left-hand side, they go back around outside the periphery of the box and out to the right-hand side. And what that does is you're eventually hoping to get a cross come in, but it's from the opposite side of the pitch. So that the opposition team, the defensive team, who've got all their markers and they do, every team practices attacking and defending set pieces, so they know the markers. It's easier to mark somebody if you know the ball's coming in from the left. Right, I've got to mark him. I've got to stand him away. He's going to make a run. Yeah, we get across him and we go and win the headers. Defenders are in favour. If you move the ball from the left, say, to the right-hand side, defenders could switch off while that ball's going. Your striker can lose your man, and the ball's coming in from an angle that they're maybe not anticipating. Decision-making we talk about all the time in the game. That's the theory behind it. That's the theory behind it. But I would absolutely advocate that I think Notts should be more dangerous from set pieces, certainly from corners. For the amount that we have, I can't remember us scoring too many times from corners, but my memory might be wrong. I would love to see the actual stats on, percentage of goals scored from corners, from attacking corners, but I certainly think we can be more dangerous from them.
Chris Gosling says our short corners end up at the feet of a centre-back usually. Jack says, and he's not far off wrong with this, the one corner we played into the box went straight to the keeper and we lost possession. I think that's why we always play short. I might argue, playing devil's advocate there, Jack, if we can't take a long corner for fear of being under pressure at the other end, that doesn't say too much about the way we set up. Scott Bell says short corners, all part of the keeping possession mantra. Crispy, yes, we did play some more long corners earlier in the season, and I don't think we scored from any. James Shipley, we mixed it up nicely in the home game on Boxing Day, was quite refreshing, but then went back to constant short ones for the away game. A mixture is good, keeps defenders guessing. Chris Gosling, even our crosses from open play are focused on a low ball across the 6-yard box, which we can't do from corners. Shane Walker, need to mix them up a bit more often. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting debate, and I suspect it's going to be revisited by many fans. You'd like to think, wouldn't you, that with someone like a Kyle Cameron, we've not mentioned Kedwin Scott, and someone like a Bostock Palmer who can deliver a very precise corner, that we should be at least getting some target goal opportunities. I don't want to bring up Grimsby Notts County last season in the playoff quarter final. Both their goals came from free kick crosses put into the box, winning headers. Equally, I don't want to be bringing Ian Birchnell's name up because I know lots of people have been throwing pelters around, but I always got the impression with Ian, he was kind of dismissive if we conceded a goal from a set piece. He always kind of seemed to categorise them as not real goals. We scored a fantastic goal with 27 passes. They scored 3 free kick goals, and they slung the ball in the box. And I know there's not that with Luke, but I do think it's an interesting debate. Like you say, Stow, given how many corners we get, we'll see. And also to pick up on your point, Stow, clearly Oldham, when they were lining up 5 yards from the corner kick, had done their homework, hadn't they, from the first game, and everything that we think is good for Notts, as you've often said, they tried to stop us and executed their game plan probably a lot better than we thought that they might. Chloe, did Oldham surprise you at the game? We all kind of dismissed Oldham as one of the worst teams to have come from Meadow Lane, this millennium, right? And then they did a job, I thought, on us for large parts of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And this is also the debate with the National League play their games over Christmas consecutively back-to-back games, in terms of you play the same team twice.
Yeah, the head-to-head, yeah.
Yeah, so that you're playing the home and the away fixture within a week. That you've got to learn a lot. You've just played them. They can see our style of play, and we're not really going to change that much. And they know that. They know we're going to have a lot of the ball, and they know we're going to have a lot of the possession. And then I think they probably turn around and went, if they score first, you immediately go and score afterwards if you can. And they did the exact same thing again on New Year's Day. It seemed as soon as we scored, they scored. And that's exactly what they did on Boxing Day. And it's frustrating because for Notts, it's go and get one and go and get two, which we seem to be fairly good at this season. Whereas last season, it was go and get one and then hold back a bit and try and take that into the rest of the game. But I hate conceding just after you're scoring because it's like you've switched off and it's really frustrating. But again, they played a good game. I preferred watching as if you were talking from a neutral fan, I preferred watching that game than I did the Oval game. Look, they got the exact same result, but it was a completely different game. They didn't just sit there with 10 men behind the ball and just shut up shop, tried to kick and head everything away. They tried to hit us on the break, and it obviously worked. Can't really have much of an opinion on the penalty. I haven't seen it back personally, and I was at the other end of the pitch. But in my opinion, the ball really wasn't going anywhere, and it might have been a silly challenge to make. But again, a mistake. But they went for it, and especially like Stal was saying that they had the opportunity to win it at the end of the game. I know we had chances, but I was nervous, kind of sitting watching the game, especially as that second half got later into the game. I turned around to my family and I was like, I'm nervous that we're actually going to lose this. So credit to them, to be fair, because they were a completely different side to what turned up on Boxing Day. Obviously, not just did their homework, kind of revised what had happened a few days before, and it worked. And they weren't awful to watch, and it was a big comparison. So credit to them, really. And hopefully we can obviously stop a couple of their mistakes. And again, we can learn from it. But it was probably naive of anyone to think that we were just going to go and walk all over them, because it was never going to be the same Oldham team that turned up. And if it was, then more for them, to be honest. But if they carry on playing like that, I can't see them going down. But they've got a long way to go. And I know the fans are in a bit of turmoil with their manager and wanting him sacked and everything. But he did what he needed to do, and they'll be very pleased with a point. I think they'd have snapped your hand off at, before the game if you said, look, well, it'll be 2-2 and you'll have played well. So, like I say, credit to them.
Squaring away the kind of aerial threat, corners, set pieces, free kicks. Chris Garsing says Baldwin and Cameron should be threats from corners. Northampton should be, but they're not really. We don't have one single player who you would back to win headers. Chris B thought the ref should have pulled Oldham players up more for strong arming knots. At one point off the ball, their player pulled Ruben back with two hands around his neck. Chris Gosling, the neck grab on Ruben was disgraceful. Chris B, the ref set a precedent when they clattered Namani in the first minute and didn't even give a foul. Zedo, we'll come on to this in a minute, since January is a key month, both in terms of fixtures and teams, having inverted commas sussed our style of play. We have to have some different patterns and set plays to unlock teams. Remy Sky, recovering. He was a bit ill, under the weather over Christmas, out in New York. I just want to know who told Slocum there was a leprechaun under the ball at that one point. They ought to know better. Still, a couple of things I want to get your thoughts on. I thought it was quite an interesting interview with Charlie, with Luke, and we must be careful to forensically over-examine, comments. But I think Charlie, perhaps voicing a few thoughts of supporters. You know, and he mentioned the word dark, or the phrase dark arts. You know, the pushing, the jostling, those sorts of things that we all know go on. You know, and it's only a foul if you get caught. Yeah, it's like speeding it. We all go above 30 mile an hour, but it's all about will you get caught? Yeah, right. Hey, right.
You never know who's watching.
Speed awareness course. You must have done one of them.
Absolutely, yeah.
The criticism last season was not too nice. I think in certain quarters, probably quite a few quarters. We've only lost one game. Right. Okay. So we don't want to go overboard here. Oldham certainly were far more aggressive on Sunday than they were at Meadow Lane. Are not tough enough and cute enough, and I know you've rewatched it. For your money, was it a penalty? Because it was the linesman that flagged. Again, like Chloe, I was completely the wrong end, but I could see that it was the linesman that gave that penalty, not the referee, and the flag did go up very early.
Yeah, I mean, it's not conclusive when you see it again from the camera angle. There's a coming together. There's a few questions, a few points in there, Paul, I think worth covering. But in terms of the penalty, look, nobody's seen it clearly. The interesting that stood out for me at the time, and it shows it again, was the referee's position. You know, the free kick comes in about 15 yards inside the knocked off. The ref stood about level with the ball. So he's seeing it from about 30, 35 yards away. Now, there's obviously contact between Carl Cameron and Peter Clark, their 40-year-old.
The wrong side of it, or not? Or was Kyle the
wrong
side?
No, Kyle was inside him. But as with any marking, as you talk about with Oldham, there's contact, there's arms up, there's contact. And I think, if I'm being honest, and obviously people think it's a biased opinion, but I think Peter Clark's been clever. He's made contact with Carl Cameron. How long was left in the game? 10, 15 minutes left in the game. They're 2-1 behind. Free kick into the box. They haven't had too many attacking opportunities. Get contact with a defender against you. Look like you can potentially get the wrong side of him and make sure you throw your legs in contact with his and go down. And the referee and the linesman between them are absolutely convinced it's a foul. You know, fair enough. Look, it's what... There's no proof to say it wasn't a penalty. It looked clumsy, so it's a penalty. But I think what's happened there is Peter Clark using his experience, as he had done by manhandling Macaulay Langstaff with the ball's 30, 40 yards away. You could see him, like the old centre halves used to do, grab hold of your shirt of your centre forward if he comes close enough to you. Nobody's going to give it because they're not looking in that area of the pitch. But you could see Macaulay trying to wrestle him off because he's got hold of his shirt. It's what defenders do. And to be fair, to give Notts credit, they've started doing bits like that, blocking runs off the ball, started being or losing the niceness that I think we had last year. So it was the sort of decision that if it had been at the other end and we're top of the league and winning 2-1, it wouldn't be a penalty. If they're at home losing 2-1 as they were, it's a penalty. If the game would have been 2-2, no matter what end it had been, it wouldn't have been a penalty. I'm fairly confident in that. So, look, I think it was clever from Peter Clark. Hey, he's won his team a penalty. So it's we're all frustrated at it, of course. But I think, yeah, it's like I said, there's obviously no VAR. We ain't got the cameras and that. So it's clever. It's clever play, you've got to say. If it was the other end, if we were 2-1 down or 2-2 and somebody does that and wins as a penalty, we're going brilliant play, definite foul. So frustrating as it is, we've got to take our medicine, take it on the chin, but say, look, if there's no reason why playing good football and being top of the league, you've still got to have that nasty streak as well in both boxes. Look, it punched us on the nose on Sunday, but hopefully we'll get our rewards from it between now and the end of the season.
Okay, so what did you make then of the question that Charlie asked about the dark arts and kind of Luke shied away a little bit and sort of like it was, don't really want my players to go down that route. A, would he admit it anyway? But B, unquestionably, we are more streetwise, tougher and resilient than last year. Yeah.
Yep.
But
Definitely.
would you have any question mark about whether we are resilient, tough enough, cute enough to win the National League title?
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah, I think we are. Okay, so we've got done not by being, that penalty wasn't given because we weren't cute enough.
No.
I don't think there's a great deal Kyle Cameron could really do about that. Maybe you'd argue, you look at the starting line. Is the starting line, have we dropped a little bit deep that it's in the penalty area? Maybe not. I don't know. I've not really looked at it in any depth. But at the sound of being a sort of a non-committal, it's sometimes one of them things that get given. That same incident can happen 10 times in different penalty areas, in different games, up and down the National League. And I would say it's given as a penalty 20% of the time. You can't tell because every incident's different. But if you're Oldham looking in, you're going, brilliant, Peter Clark's done clever. He's got wrestling one-on-one with a defender, sort of isolated round the back, managed to get up alongside him and make it look like he's all over him, brings him down. Then the argument is, from a defensive point, you'd say to your defenders, well, if that's the case, you've just got to go and stand and either let them win the header or see if they're going to get anything from it, or just go and compete on your own. And then if they win the header and score, we go back to the argument, well, we're too nice again, not getting tight enough in the box. So it's a frustrating one, massively frustrating. And again, I was amazed at the referee's position. If you have a look at it, see where the ref stood, he's about level with the guy taking a free kick. So he must be got to be 30 yards away from it. And the lines went out on the touchline 25 yards away. Look, I've not seen anything to say it definitely wasn't a penalty. So you've got to go, all right, fair enough. One of them, we've come off the worst side of it, but hopefully we get some go our way.
Chris Gosling says 1 defeat in 25 is easily the best in my time supporting Notts. Not going to be too dependent. I think he means despondent. We all knew January was going to be a telling month. We played twice in the league before Wrexham play again in the league. James Shipley, we look tougher with Baldwin in the middle of defence. He's a brute, takes no prisoners, and is the best last man, in inverted commas, I've seen in the National League this season. A couple of people also mentioning Mr. Unsworth using his not inconsiderable frames. I think it was when Kyle Cameron got walloped, wasn't it, in front of the dugout? Did Unsworth deserve a card when he came onto the pitch and pushed over a Notts player? It was quite funny in a way, wasn't it? Talk about hitting a brick wall, Chloe. Unsworth was always going to win that collision, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. But it's frustrating because the refs come up a lot, and I think we've all kind of known after our 3-4 years in the National League that they're not great. What frustrated me more than the penalty was the kind of ongoing fouls, but not ones. Look, I'm all for letting the game run. I'm all for it. There's a lot of stoppages, especially in the Premier League, and it gets frustrating. But there was a lot of fouls that should have been yellow cards, never mind just a free kick. And a lot of them weren't given. I think there might have been 3 or 4 that I think should have been booked after the Aaron Nemane one being the first one. And there was a few more after that. We committed our first foul tackle. I don't even think it was a foul, to be honest, because Kyle Cameron got the ball. Our first foul of the game when we got booked. And then that just continued on. But I think, like somebody says, it's frustrating with the referees because, look, that didn't change our game. Do you know what I mean? That didn't essentially drop us 2 points. Obviously, we can argue about the penalty, but I can't say anything because I didn't see it from the angle. But by booking someone in the first 10 minutes, it shows your authority. And I just thought Oldham kind of had the one over the ref for the rest of the game, and it was really frustrating. And I think that got in our heads a lot as well, because maybe if we'd have brought on like Jim O'Brien, like in the first half, something like that, when there's a game like that, who's for me our most robust player and who will put a tackle in and is box to box and he's everywhere. For argument's sake, he could get sent off in a game like that with how the ref was kind of playing the game. So it's difficult because if, from Luke Williams' perspective, if we went and matched that, we were actually the ones getting booked. So it's so difficult to be like, well, if the ref's letting them do kind of whatever, it's not the same story for us. So I understand the argument that we should be again matching people for what they're doing, but you'll just easily get somebody sent off just by doing the same thing. So I can't complain about that really. But it's just frustrating. We know what the state of the referees are like in this league, whether we're at the top of the league or at the bottom. So it is frustrating, but it's one of them things you got to move on. We know what there's right characters in the dugouts in this league. So yeah, I wouldn't like to be stood up next to him either.
Yeah, he's a four-man wall in his own right, isn't he? Now then, Wrexham and Notts, and we'll get everyone's thoughts, I'm sure, because as soon as you mention Wrexham, obviously Notts fans get all animated, as do various Wrexham fans who tune into this show. Okay, Wrexham and Notts, okay. And I think you have to throw Chesterfield into this mix, Stel, as well, given they've got 2 games in hand. Very little between us. I think it would be fair to say, from all the other clubs in this league, Notts always get the style vote and style points. So the number of times we play a team, beat them. And the view then is, you're the best team that we've played. You were much better than Wrexham. You look a class above everything else. Wrexham were lucky to beat us 2-1, whatever. So you've kind of got a purist way in which we're setting about seeking the title. And then, without wishing to dumb it down too much, you have Wrexham who are very, very functional, efficient. Yeah. And I think you were doing your stats as you always were. We've consistently said very little to choose between the two. And since we beat Wrexham, back in September, whenever it was, we in terms of results, we're kind of going blow for blow, aren't we? We're kind of going blow for blow, but achieving those results in different ways.
Well, I mean, I can't speak too much for how Wrexham are achieving them because we don't see them, obviously, their whole games. Yeah, the stat I sort of said to you before we came on is since October the 4th we played Wrexham at Meadow Lane, beaten, obviously. They've dropped 6 points and we've dropped 8 since that. So very nearly 3 calendar months ago. Amazing. So they've dropped 6, we've dropped 8. So both clubs are on an unbelievable run of form. Like, I know because the Oldham draw is fresh in our head, then it's the wheels are coming off, and we've had precious little to moan about. So that's 2 points dropped, no mistake about it. Over the Boxing Day, New Year games, Wrexham do brilliantly well and beat Solihull twice, home and away. So it looks like they've gained a bit of an advantage on us, but it is absolutely nip and tuck. So I say, in 3 months, there is 2 points drop difference between the two teams. And obviously, if you take into account we beat them and took 3 points off them, arguably we've had the better run still. So, there'll be points dropped. I'm going to say all over the place. I don't mean that sporadically as things go. But if you look at it, and I can't remember, I did have a look the other day before the game at the weekend. Wrexham have dropped points at Wealdstone and at York. So now we've had our Oldham. Both teams are not immune to just having an off day or a day where the result doesn't go. But by and large, both teams, you've got to give them absolute credit. And we can't talk about doom and gloom or anything like that because we've had one draw at Oldham. Disappointing, yes. But like I say, in the last 3 months, we've dropped 8 points, 4 draws. It's an incredible run. So, yes, it's not the result we wanted at Oldham. And again, can we compare? I don't care how Wrexham are doing it, to be honest. I don't see their performance. I think I'd probably describe them as powerful. In terms of maybe when we speak to other teams that play both teams, you're right. Everyone says the football we play is, best. We control the game. We just don't give other teams a chance. And I think the other teams describe Wrexham as a bit more powerful. So take your pick the bones out of it. So I think in Chesterfield, you're right to include them because they're on a hell of a run as well, and they're gonna win plenty of games. They've got plenty of ammunition. So still a long way to go, as ever in football. It can always change. Things can always upset the apple cart. So it's all about Notts doing what they need to do, and that's get back to winning ways on Saturday.
Matt Boswell, I'm a Wrexham fan, but I do watch Notts games in Australia as well. Great to watch. Love the competition between us this year. Hope we can both go up. James Shipley, if there's any justice this season, we will see Notts and Wrexham going up. Unfortunately, the playoffs are often unjust. It's a hell of a race to avoid those playoffs. Craig Simmons, I think Chesterfield's still very much in it, to be honest. And obviously we have them later this month. Chris B, can we overturn our Aldershot hoodoo? We'll come on to that in a moment. Chloe, transfer window's open. Macaulay Langstaff not gone anywhere so far. No bids. Look, and I would be staggered if he's not a Notts County player on February the 1st, to be honest with you. But if we're playing Football Manager or Manageress again, would you be looking to bring anyone in?
I mean, I think Stel said it a while ago that we can always improve. We've got one of the smallest, if not the smallest squad in the league. Yeah, we can do with depth. We've been quite lucky with injuries, to be completely honest. Obviously, we had Chickson and Macaulay at the same time, but luckily both got over whatever it was quite quickly. We've now had Baldwin back for a good amount of time, who, like someone said, looks like the best centre-half in the league, and I can't disagree. When he first came in, was I so sure about him? No, but I'm glad to have been proven very wrong because I think he's incredible, to be honest, and has really changed the way that we play in our defence. But yeah, we can strengthen. I think it shows you, especially with Kyle Cameron down the left wing back. Do I want to see him there very often? I'm not convinced. But at least it's an option. But I certainly think we can strengthen there. I think like on the right hand side, I think we're okay. We've obviously got Nemane, who was incredible again at Oldham. He was my man of the match. I mean, both kind of came from his side, and he's not very often he doesn't get a cross in. He's been brilliant. And then you've got Adebayo Rolling, who's also equally has been as good when he's had to step up. So there's definitely enough cover there. But yeah, I think we can always improve. But it's a good sign that when Macaulay was out, we scored 4 goals. Do you know what I mean? So we're not this one-man team that other teams might claim that we are. We've got goals coming from all over the pitch. But yeah, we can always strengthen, especially in depth. We've shown with John Bostock. I mean, he's come in, he's started games, he's come on in games. We're not just going to be signing somebody for the sake of it. And I trust our recruitment. How can you not with the side that we've got now? So I'm only imagining good things. Obviously, I think the loan players are maybe the way to go at this point in the season. Yeah, it'll be very interesting, especially with Wrexham as well, to see if they put their hands in the pockets again. I don't know where they can fit another player in, to be honest, with how they're doing at the minute. And obviously the depth of squad that they've got, but I wouldn't put it past them at all to make another big signing.
Yeah, my 2 pence, Stel, if I was looking to strengthen the squad anywhere, I'd be bringing a centre-half in myself.
In place of who?
Okay, I'm not saying you would automatically start, but there is a debate with Notts, isn't there, in that we require all our defenders to be able to play as well as tackle and head the ball. And I think Connell's not had much of a sniff, has he, this season? I personally would be a little, but playing Football Manager would be a little more comfortable with, obviously not this player, but a Mark Ellis type of central defender, maybe got 1 or 2 promotions under his belt, been there, got the T-shirt, because I do think mentality is going to be a big part when it really gets down to the nubbins later this season. So, if I'm nailing because of the mast, I would say experienced, mentally tough centre half. I'm not saying he would
So,
start, but I'm saying he will give you an option. You know.
yeah, well, I said I was only asking the question, just playing
Yeah,
it.
no. I'm
Because
giving you an
again,
answer, Stel. Come on.
well, that's fine. No, that's fine. I say again, we can all do the theoretical. This is what we want, but
Yeah.
again, you do that. You've got to change the team around, and you're absolutely right. As Chloe said, I think Aidan Baldwin has developed brilliantly this season. I think he was excellent at Oldham.
Really?
He's been excellent for a number of weeks, but what he gives you is that comfort, that ability to bring the ball out. To pass the ball long, to pass the ball short, but also to come out with the ball. But you need all your defenders to be able to accept the ball. To not be a sort of fly in the ointment to the fluidity of Knott's play.
Yeah.
So again, you want to change a dynamic of a different sort of player. Connor Rawlinson, has done brilliantly when he's been in the team. Say he's been out injured, not had too much of a go this season. But I think he's adapted his game under Luke Williams a little bit when he's played. So I think one for me, and I wouldn't disagree about the sort of what you're talking about mentality. Absolutely, I think us and Wrexham and Chesterfield won't be far away. They're in the mix. I think the difference could come down to that mentality. There's obviously a bit of a gap. I think them three. I know Woking are doing well again now, but it was Southend a few weeks ago, wasn't it? But they're the three that have sort of been going strong all season, and it could come down to that absolute winners mentality. It could come down to a little bit of squad depth as well at the back end of the season. Who knows with the FA Cup involvement that Wrexham and Chesterfield have got? Not wishing any injuries upon them, but you never know, do you? So squad depth could play a part as we go later in the season, but it's a very fine line between certainly us and Wrexham and Chesterfield as well.
So if you could bring a person into an area of the team, where would you look? Where do you think you will get your best bang for the buck that it's needed? If not starting, but in this group of to add a bit more to it.
Yeah, look, it's the same answer for me. It's got to be somebody better than we've already got. Otherwise, you just add in for numbers' sake. The one area that I think, and Chloe's sort of touched on it there, is that left-hand side. I would like another natural left-hand sided player. You've got Chickson, who's been brilliant this season. Kyle Cameron, who plays that left-hand side of the central defensive role because he's naturally left-footed and he accepts the ball and he can travel with it. Really accomplished on the ball, as we know. But if Kyle Cameron's not available, have we got a naturally left-sided defensive replacement for him in the way that Richard Brindley has sort of been converted into that right-sided centre half? Now, I know you say Adam Chickson is the natural one. Of course he is. But then who do we have on the left wing? Is Toby Adebayo going to play that side naturally on the left-hand side? I know people say about Joel Taylor. I know his loan's up for renewal, isn't it? But he doesn't seem to have too much of a future. But a naturally left-sided player, again, it might be just a backup. But that's just the area I think, have we quite got the cover that's necessary should we get an injury? But again, I'm not advocating that we need to rush out. It's desperate stakes. To me, we're top of the table. But I think that's an area I think, well, if you did just get a couple of knocks, then have we got any natural cover that doesn't... Of course, we've got somebody who could go there who's right-footed. But then does that naturally stop a little bit of your flow, a little bit of our Knott's play, where the two wide centre halves drift a little bit wider than you would normally see, maybe, or normally used to, and then they've always got to come inside on their or on their favoured foot, if you like, and that just maybe slows things down a little bit. But again, we're talking about minor details.
James Shipley says, happy with the depth in most areas. Quality over quantity. Need a better option than Cairo off the bench, in my opinion. Chris B says, Kyle Cameron did well at left wing back, but thought we lost his bursts from the back. Need to bring cover for Chickson if Taylor isn't coming back. Kind of the point that you just mentioned there, Stel. Scott Bell, agree with Paul. We lack a powerful 6'4" centre back who can head the ball. We're vulnerable to crosses into our box, especially from set pieces. Husky points out, yes, I think we'd seen, he's a bit of a surprise. Chris Bush who normally catches the eye when he plays for Bromley against us, won't be playing for Bromley against us anymore because his contract was cancelled last week. Rumour has it, had a bit of a dust up with the management, but he's now left Bromley. Aldershot, yeah, that keeps cropping up. Well, let's have a quick chat about Aldershot for the end of the programme. Chloe, I don't know whether you was at the blimey, it was a bloody. You'd certainly remember it if you was there. I think your granddad was there, but it was woeful last season. But as other people have said in the programme, I hadn't fully realised 2 games before Wrexham play again. Now I know we played 2 more already, but you can put a few points on the board psychologically in here when Wrexham next play a league game. If they are, they would. If we win Saturday, don't want to count the chickens. They would be 5 points behind us with what would that be? The 3 games in hand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Is it 2?
2.
5. If we win Saturday, 5 ahead with 2, they'd have 2 in hand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would always rather have points on the board. We've chased it plenty of times, and you've looked at the results and gone, yeah, fair enough. We've got 2 games in hand and don't see us dropping a point. Next minute, you kind of lose to bottom of the league or drop some points. I hate chasing it. I'd much rather have the points on the board. And if they better our results, what can we do about it? We've kind of done our bit. And it's not as if they're getting a rest either. They're playing in the cup. They're obviously going to want to follow through with that. They're not going to put a half-string side out, are they, in the FA Cup?
Coventry, isn't it? They've got Coventry away.
Coventry away, yeah. But again, they're not going to want to be pushovers. The FA Cup, like you say, is going to be a big thing for Wrexham, especially with obviously their owners wanting to kind of bump up supporters and everything like that. So they're going to want to put on a show and show that they can compete at a higher level. But at the same time, it's going to be difficult for them. But again, that's not a free hit. They're still playing. They've got a lot of catching up to do. They're then going to have a lot of games in a short space of time. I would rather have what we've got, a bit of kind of breathing space as it is, and hopefully put our points on the board and then see what they can do. But yeah, I hate chasing it personally. So I'd rather have the us play the games first and then see if they can match us or do one better.
You're heading down to Aldershot still?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, I'll be down there with Dave this time. Dave's doing it. Charlie's away, so
good.
Doing a 5 live game at Dave Bracegirdle's doing it.
Yeah, so, I mean,
and we hope he brings us a bit of luck down there because it's not a happy hunting ground, as we all know.
Yeah, it was woeful last year. Well, the way the game ended was woeful. Let's put it like that. I mean, it weren't great in the first half, but I mean, it was pretty poor the last half hour.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I wouldn't change your first opinion. Yeah, it was pretty woeful all game. Yeah.
Psychologically, yeah, in a way, you would view a draw as a bad result almost.
Not a bad result, but disappointing. Yeah, it's not what we want. Of course, it's no more or less disappointing than the Oldham draw. As Chloe's alluded to there, the pressure is on them teams at the top to keep winning.
Yeah,
because it doesn't matter who it is. There's no signs of let up from any of the other teams. So if you go on a spree of drawing 5 or 6 games, you'll find yourself playing catch up. You could be 8 to 10 points behind. So you've got to keep winning. The pressure's always there, but that's no different. There's nothing new this season to being at the top of a division, any division at any time. You need to win games to keep yourself at the top. We think back to sort of Stockport's run after Dave Challoner took over last season. 2 defeats in 30, was it, something like that? And unbelievable run. Well, Notts and Wrexham are both on their way to matching and maybe bettering it. But it's no different. You've just got to keep winning the game that's in front of you. You've got to keep accumulating points. And if you do get a draw, of course, it's not what you want. So you've then got to endeavour to do everything you can to get 3 points in the next game. So psychologically, yes, not winning Saturday will be a disappointment. It's back-to-back draws, which hasn't happened, too much this season. But, it's not a disaster, but it's not what we want. So they'll be going there to win the game. And again, the Oldham draw, you go back to, we've analysed that, but it's a sort of a couple of mistakes and a debatable penalty. We've scored 2 good goals. We've played decent. It's not like we've had a catastrophe of a performance. We play well. I think we win the game at Aldershot.
Strike, and we'll come to Chloe as well in a moment. Strikers Union still. One thing I guess that as a result of events during the 90 minutes, did you ever score 2 goals and get dropped the following game? We're talking about Kevin Scott here. I mean, rotated is a posh word, I know, but if you scored 2 goals, Stel, and then didn't start the following game and you were picked.
Like I say, I don't remember loads about my career. It's forgettable. But believe me, if I'd have been dropped after scoring a couple, I think I'd remember not only that, the bust-up I would have had with the manager subsequently. So I don't think it happened. and back in my day, it wasn't about being rested. It was you were dropped. So I don't think it ever happened. But hey, look, that is the modern football. And that's, that is part of being a team at the top who's got somebody like Macaulay Langstaff scored the goals he has. Wow. I mean, that is, talk about a manager that's got to make tough decisions. Well, that is probably as tough a decision as you'll have to make. He made his call, and as football throws up peculiarities, when you've got quality players, odds are both of them go and score, don't they? So both give you an answer. Was it the right decision? We'll never know. But that's the life of a football manager. When everything's winning, you think everything's rosy, but you still have them really tough decisions to make. And Kedwin Scott will rightly feel a little bit aggrieved at not even being in the team, not just being moved out to one of the not the central striker, but not being in the team after scoring 2. So, hey, look, that is football for you, and that is, it's a cutthroat business, and sometimes it's cutthroat in a bad way. You score 2, you don't play the next game. How about that? But the only way you can answer that is by doing what Kedwin Scott did and coming on the pitch, taking your chance, scoring a goal when you get the chance, and say just being professional. That's the reaction you want to see, and I think that again it just reiterates what a good set of professional players that they've got, and what a good sort of dressing room Luke Williams has got and harnessed, in that there's no fallouts from it, from dropping a striker who scored 2.
Chloe, were you surprised by that?
I thought it was very, very harsh, to be honest. It wasn't just the goals that he scored. I thought he was brilliant on Boxing Day, especially when he kind of all eyes are on him. It was kind of, what can you do then? He turns up, 2 goals, finished, really. He was brilliant. For me, both of them have got to be on the pitch. We've got to find some kind of way. Look, I'm not slagging Williams off, far from it, because like Sal says earlier, he hasn't made many mistakes this season, but we've bought a pairing from Gateshead last season. We've bought them as a pair. I looked at the National League when they put their Team of the Year out, and they did one for obviously our league and then the National League North and South. They both made it in the Gateshead team, and they've not played there since last season, and they've both made it. I just personally think it was very harsh. But again, like Stav says, what can you do as a striker? You come on the pitch and you score a goal. So he's creating a big headache for Williams, obviously, but it's a headache you want to have. We talk about that Mitchell maybe isn't kind of the best person you want to be sat on a bench as an option, but at the minute, he's kind of out of the question. He's not even appearing on the bench because we've got Scott there. So, look, we've got attacking players. It's just getting the right formula and getting them on the pitch, in my opinion. I think, obviously, Austin played well against Oldham on Boxing Day. He didn't have the best game for me on New Year's Day, so I think it was more harsh dropping Scott, but that's just my opinion. I'd like to see them both on the pitch as much as we possibly can, but it's annoying as well because we don't get to see it very often, and he obviously wasn't on the pitch very long with Langstaff after Langstaff got bought off. So, well, will we ever see them play a prolonged period together? And I'm not just talking about 90 minutes. I'm talking about a few games. I'll never know, but maybe we'll never know. But we'll see. It might not work. We might try and do that. And obviously, last season it was Scott that was the striker and Langstaff as more of the winger. But that seemed to work. Whereas we've put Langstaff up front this season, and that's also seemed to work. So, look, Williams sees what we're doing in training. He obviously kind of knows what's going on. But for me as a fan, they're possibly the two best players of the football club. Obviously, you could bring Ruben into that as well, technically. But with how many goals they scored together last season, I'd like to be seeing them on the pitch at the same time more often.
Chris Gosling says, we are more dangerous with Scott and Macca both on the pitch. Andrew Blatherwick, but how could Williams say to Macca he can't get back in when he's getting a goal a game? Wouldn't want to be in Luke's shoes in that regard. James Shipley says, Scott and Langstaff scored around 65 goals combined between Gateshead and Notts in 2022. Not a bad year for them both. I mean, my personal view, and you clearly, other than Luke Williams, are probably as well versed to commentate as anybody on this debate. But I think when you are a promotion chasing side, title chasing side, I always like to see two strikers. We played a lot last season, vast majority with Kyle Wootton as a lone striker, and I think everybody thought that given the relationship and the partnership they had at Gateshead Stow, these two would be a shoo-in, to be a front duo, because strikers don't often hunt in pairs in anywhere near the frequency they used to. Do you think we're better with those two up front, or is the manager taking a view that the way he wants the overall construct of the side and needs to get in the three central midfielders, he's prioritising the three midfielder over the striker? Because we've probably started Scott and Langstaff up front, a third to a half of the games this season?
Yeah, I wouldn't know the stats on how many times they've started. I could have a look at that, but yeah. I think you've answered the question there yourself there. I think the construction and the makeup of the team and the formation dictates your personnel and who plays where. Because of the way we play, and again, let's be honest, it's gone pretty well.
Exactly.
We are playing with one central striker, which is Macaulay Langstaff predominantly. And don't make any mistake about it. If there was no Macaulay Langstaff, that would be Kedwin Scott's preferred position. So they are both central strikers. So the argument is, do you then alter the shape of the team slightly to play two strikers, knowing that means then a different role for Ruben, a different role for a few other players? Now, what are they on? 34 goals between them. They've not played all the games. Macaulay's just missed a couple. Kedwin's been, say, in and out of the team. He's been in more than out, but he's not played every game as he, on the bench the other night. That's a hell of a return, But again, as I'll always say, that's not just down to them scoring individual worldies. That's down to the way the team play. Look at the two goals at the weekend. Aaron the man, both goals. First one, ball to feet, out wide on the touchline, beats his defender, gets to the byline, low ball, Macaulay Langstaff, goal scorers, poacher's goal in the 6-yard box. Second ball, Matty Palmer inside the fullback for the man's pace, still at the byline. Ball drops, 6-yard box, it's Kedwin Scott in position to put it in. They're just in the right place at the right time, doing what good goal scorers do. But it's the team that get them there. So it's, again, like that jigsaw piece, it's putting all the pieces of the puzzle together to give you your headline maker, if you like, your Macaulay, or your goal scorer, Kedwin Scott, whoever it is, to get them the headlines. But there's a lot of pieces that fit together to get you there in the first place. And we're top of the table, okay, tight with Wrexham. Would you need to change it? Do we need to change it? Not at the minute. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
On that note, that's a very good way of finishing it. Yeah, absolutely. One defeated 25. But as I say, we all have our own little views and points. We are, let's be honest, in a much better position, I think, than 99% of us thought that we would be at the start of the season. Off to Aldershot on Saturday, I think, have to drive. There's a train strike, so if you normally go on a train like I do, don't bother. I think on the roads is the only way that you can do it. You'll be down there, Stel. So will I. Chloe, will you be at Burnley at home Saturday, or?
They're not, no, but it was a bit of a trip for me after I've been up and down over Christmas. So I had to give this one a miss, I'm afraid, especially now I haven't got my train pass. It's costing me a bloody fortune to get backwards and forwards.
Oh dear, yeah. Oh yes, of course, no young person's rail card anymore, is it?
No. So now I'm out of education. I lose my train pass that I get from my dad being a driver. So that certainly hit me this year, but I'll be back as much as I can.
Brilliant. Hey, thank you very much for listening in and watching tonight. We'll be back next Monday. Safe travels down to Aldershot. Happy New Year again to each one and all. And we'll be back next week. Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Cheers.